Kajkavian K is a dialect of the Croatian language spoken by Croats in Central Croatia, Gorski Kotar and northern Istria. It has low mutual intelligibility with the Shtokavian, on which Croatia's standard language is based. Some notable linguists consider Kajkavian to be a language of its own. As of 2015, literary Kajkavian has a separate language ISO 639-3 code (KJV). Active attempts are being made by some organizations to widen its recognition and status, which has thus far included introduction of school subjects in Kajkavian in some parts of Croatia, as well as the creation of the aforementioned ISO code. The term Kajkavian stems from the interrogative pronoun kai. The other main dialects of Serbo-Croatian also derive the name from the reflex of the interrogative pronoun. However, the pronouns are only general pointers and do not serve as actual identifiers of the respective dialects. Certain Kajkavian dialects use the interrogative pronoun California, the one that is usually used in Shtokavian. The pronouns these dialects are named after are merely the most common one in the dialect. Outside Croatia, the dialect is also spoken in Austrian Burgenland and a number of enclaves in Hungary along the Austrian and Croatian border and in Romania. Although speakers of Kajkavian are Croats, and Kajkavian is considered a dialect of Serbo-Croatian, its closest relative is the Slovene language, followed by Shtokavian and then Shtokavian. Kajkavian is part of a dialect continuum with both Slovene and Shtokavian. Classification. Historically, the classification of Kajkavian has been a subject of much debate regarding both the question of whether it ought to be considered a dialect or a language, as well as the question of what its relation is to neighboring speeches. Since at least the early to mid-20th century, Kajkavian has been conventionally classified as a Serbo-Croatian dialect. Autonyms used throughout history by various Kajkavian writers have been manifold, ranging from Slavic to Croatian or Illyrian. The naming went through several phases, with the Slavic-based name initially being dominant. Over time, the name Croatian started gaining ground mainly during the 17th century, and by the beginning of the 18th century, it had supplanted the older name Slavic. The name also followed the same evolution in neighboring Slovene Prekmurje, although the name Slovene Croatian existed as well. The actual term Kajkavian is today accepted by its speakers in Croatia. The problem with classifying Kajkavian within South Slavic stems in part from its structural differences from neighboring Shtokavian speeches as well as its historical closeness to Slovene speeches. Some Slavists maintain that when the separation of West and South Slavic speeches happened, they separated into four divergent groups: Shtokavian, Shtokavian, Kajkavian and Slovene. As a result of this, throughout history Kajkavian has often been categorized differently than today. It was considered by many to be either a separate node altogether or a node categorized together with Slovene. Furthermore, no isoglosses exist that would separate all Slovene speeches from all Serbo-Croatian speeches, nor do innovations exist common to Kajkavian, Shtokavian, and Shtokavian that would separate them from Slovene. Characteristics. The Kajkavian speech area is bordered in the northwest by the Slovene language and in the northeast by the Hungarian language. In the east and southeast it is bordered by Shtokavian dialects roughly along a line that used to serve as the border between civil Croatia and the Habsburg military frontier. Finally, in the southwest it borders Shtokavian along the Kupa and Dobra rivers. It is thought that historically these borders extended further to the south and east. For example, the eastern border is thought to have extended at least well into modern-day Slavonia to the area around the town of Pakrac. Some historical toponyms suggest a slightly larger extent. The capital Zagreb has historically been a Kajkavian-speaking area, and Kajkavian is still in use by its older and to a lesser extent younger population. Modern Zagreb speech has been under considerable influence of Shtokavian. The vast intermingling of Kajkavian and standard Shtokavian in Zagreb and its surroundings has led to problems in defining the underlying structure of those speeches. As a result, many of the urban speeches have been called either Kajkavian or Kajkavian Shtokavian rather than Kajkavian or Shtokavian. Additionally, the forms of speech in use exhibit significant sociolinguistic variation. Research suggests that younger Zagreb-born speakers of the Kajkavian tend to consciously use more Kajkavian features when speaking to older people, showing that such features are still in their inventory even if not used at all times. However, the Kajkavian is distinct from Kajkavian as spoken in non-urban areas, and the mixing of Shtokavian and Kajkavian outside of urban settings is much rarer and less developed. The Kajkavian has also been named Zagreb Shtokavian by some. As a result of the previously mentioned mixing of dialects, various Kajkavian features and characteristics have found the way into the standard Shtokavian spoken in those areas. For example, some of the prominent features of the fixed stress-based accentual system without distinctive lengths, the merger of C and of DZ and D, vocabulary differences as well as a different place of stress in words. The Zagreb variety of Shtokavian is considered by some to enjoy parallel prestige with the prescribed Shtokavian variety. Because of that, speakers whose native speech is closer to the standard variety often end up adopting the Zagreb speech for various reasons. Kajkavian is closely related to Slovene and to Slovene in particular. Higher amounts of correspondences between the two exist in inflection and vocabulary. Speakers of Prekmurian are Slovenes and Hungarian Slovenes who belonged to the Archdiocese of Zagreb during the Habsburg era. They used Kajkavian as the liturgical language, and by the 18th century, Kajkavian had become the standard language of Prekmuria. Moreover, literary Kajkavian was also used in neighboring Slovene Styria during the 17th and 18th centuries, and in parts of it, education was conducted in Kajkavian. As a result of various factors, Kajkavian has numerous differences compared to Shtokavian. Kajkavian has a prothetic V generalized in front of U. A similar feature exists in colloquial Czech. Proto-Slavic *dj resulted in Kajkavian J as opposed to Shtokavian D. The nasal *o has evolved into a closed O in Kajkavian. Common Slavic *v and *v were retained as V in Kajkavian, whereas in Shtokavian they resulted in U in U, and in Charkavian they gave way to Virginia. Kajkavian has retained C in front of R. Kajkavian Z in front of a vowel turns into R. A similar evolution happened in Slovene Charkavian as well as Western Shtokavian, however the latter does not use it in its standard form. Kajkavian retains JT and JD clusters. Like most Slavic speeches, Kajkavian exhibits final obstru and D voicing, however it is not consistently spelled out. Diminutive suffixes in Kajkavian are ek, echo, eco. Negative past tense construction in Kajkavian deviates syntactically from neighboring speeches in its placing of the negative particle. It is argued by some that this might be a remnant of the Pannonian Slavic system. Similar behavior is exhibited in Slovak. Kajkavian has a different first-person plural present tense suffix, me. Relative pronouns differ from neighboring dialects and languages. Kajkavian uses kateri, teri, The genitive plural in Shtokavian adds an at the end, whereas Kajkavian retains the old form. Kajkavian retains the old allocative plural. The loss of the dual is considered to be significantly more recent than in Shtokavian. Kajkavian has no vocative case. So-called S-type nouns have been retained as a separate declension class in Kajkavian, contrasted from the neuter due to the form and-s in oblique cases. The same is true for Slovene. Kajkavian has no aorist. The supine has been retained as distinctive from infinitive as in Slovene. The infinitive suffix is a t, ci, whereas the supine counterpart's a t, c. The supine and the infinitive are often stressed differently. The supine is used with verbs of motion. The future tense is formed with the auxiliary biti and the l participle as in Slovene and similar to Czech and Slovak. Modern urban Kajkavian speeches tend to have stress as the only significant prosodic feature as opposed to the Shtokavian four-tone system. Kajkavian exhibits various syntactic influences from German. The Slavic prefix u has a y reflex in some dialects, similar to Czech vy. In addition to the above list of characteristics that set Kajkavian apart from Shtokavian, research suggests possible a closer relation with Kajkavian and the Slovak language, especially with the Central Slovak dialects upon which Standard Slovak is based on. As modern-day Hungary used to be populated by Slavic-speaking peoples prior to the arrival of Hungarians, there have been hypotheses on possible common innovations of future West and South Slavic speakers of that area. Kajkavian is the most prominent of the South Slavic speeches in sharing the most features that could potentially be common Pannonian innovations. Some Kajkavian words bear a closer resemblance to other Slavic languages such as Russian than they do to Shtokavian or Kajkavian. For instance, Gda seems to be at first glance unrelated to Kada, however when compared to Russian, Slovene Kdaj, or Prekmurian Gda-It Kda, the relationship becomes apparent. Kajkavian kak and tak are exactly like the Russian cognates and Prekmurian compared to Shtokavian, Kajkavian and Slovene kako and tako. History of research. Linguistic investigation began during 19th century, although the research itself often ended in non-linguistic or outdated conclusions. Since that was the age of national revivals across Europe as well as the South Slavic lands, the research was steered by national narratives. Within that framework, Slovene philologists such as Frank Miklosic and Jurnej Kopita attempted to reinforce the idea of Slovene and Kajkavian unity and asserted that Kajkavian speakers are Slovenes. On the other hand, Joseph Dabrowski also claimed linguistic and national unity between the two groups but under the Croatian ethnonym. The first modern dialectal investigations of Kajkavian started at the end of the 19th century. The Ukrainian philologist A.M. Lukyanenko read the first comprehensive monograph on Kajkavian in Russian in 1905. Kajkavian dialects have been classified along various criteria. For instance, Serbian philologist Alexander Belic divided the Kajkavian dialect according to the reflexes of Proto-Slavic phonemes tj and dj into three subdialects: Eastern, Northwestern and Southwestern. However, later investigations did not corroborate Belic's division. Contemporary Kajkavian dialectology begins with Croatian philologist Stjepan Ivcic's work, Jezika Charvata Kajkavaka, which highlighted accentual characteristics. Due to the great diversity within Kajkavian, primarily in phonetics, phonology, and morphology, the Kajkavian dialect atlas features a large number of of subdialects, from 4 identified by Ivsic to 6 proposed by Croatian linguist Brozovic, all the way up to 15 according to a monograph by Croatian linguist Miho Lonkaric. Area of use. Kajkavian is mainly spoken in northern and northwestern Croatia. The mixed half Kajkavian towns along the eastern and southern edge of the Kajkavian-speaking area are Pitomača, Kazma, Kutina, Popovača, Sunja, Petrinja, Martinskovi East, Ozalj, Ogalan, Fužine, and Kaba, including newer Shtokavian enclaves of Bjelovar, Sisak, Glina, Dubrava, Zagreb and Novi Zagreb. The southernmost Kajkavian villages are Krapira, Jasenovac, and Pavasek, Vorisha and Hrvatsko Selo in Zedrinska Gora. The major cities in northern Croatia are located in what was historically a Kajkavian-speaking area, mainly Zagreb, Koprivnica, Krapina, Krzevci, Varaždin, Čakovec. The typical archaic Kajkavian is today spoken mainly in Hrvatsko Zagorje Hills and Međimurje Plain, and in adjacent areas of northwestern Croatia where immigrants and the Shtokavian standard had much less influence. The most peculiar Kajkavian dialect is spoken in Bednja in northernmost Croatia. Many of northern Croatian urban areas today are partly Shtokavianized due to the influence of the standard language and immigration of Shtokavian speakers. Other southeastern people who immigrate to Zagreb from Shtokavian territories often pick up rare elements of Kajkavian in order to assimilate, notably the pronoun kai instead of sto and the extended use of future anterior, but they never adapt well because of alien Eastern accents and ignoring Kajkavian archaisms and syntax. Kajkavian phonetics. Vowels a, e, I, o, u. Consonants b, t, s, t, d, dz, d, f per hour, x, j, k, l per meter, n, p, r per second, t, v, z. Kajkavian literary language. Writings that are judged by some as being distinctly Kajkavian can be dated to around the 12th century. The first comprehensive works in Kajkavian started to appear during the 16th century at a time when Central Croatia gained prominence due to the geopolitical environment since it was free from Ottoman occupation. The most notable work of that era was Ivanus Pergasic's Decretum, released in 1574. Decretum was a translation of Istvan Werboch's Tripartitum. At the same time, many Protestant writers of the Slovene lands also released the works in Kajkavian in order to reach a wider audience, while also using some Kajkavian features in the native writings. During that time, the autonym used by the writers was usually Slavinsky, Horvatsky or Ilirski. After that, numerous works appeared in the Kajkavian literary language. Chronicles by Vramek, liturgical works by Ratkash Habdelik, Mully, poetry by Anna Katerina Zedrinska, and a dramatic opus by Titus Brezovatsky. Kajkavian-based are important lexicographic works like Jambresik's Dictionary 1670, and the monumental interdialectal dictionary Gazov Fallacium by Ivan Belostenek. Miroslav Kralez's poetic work, Ballad Petrus Karimpola, drew heavily on Belostenek's dictionary. Kajkavian grammars include Kornig's 1795, Matijevic's 1810 and Thurkovki's 1837. During that time, the Kajkavian literary language was the dominant written form in its spoken area along with Latin and German. Until Ludovic Gage's attempts to modernize the spelling, Kajkavian was written using Hungarian spelling conventions. Kajkavian began to lose its status during the Croatian national revival in mid-19th century when the leaders of the Illyrian movement opted to use the Shtokavian dialect as the basis for the future South Slavic standard language, the reason being that it had the highest number of speakers. Initially, the choice of Shtokavian was accepted even among Slovene intellectuals, but later it fell out of favor. The Zagreb linguistics school was opposed to the course that the standardization process took, namely, it had almost completely ignored Kajkavian dialects, which was contrary to the original vision of Zagreb school. With the notable exception of vocabulary influence of Kajkavian on the standard Croatian register, there was very little to no input from other non-Shtokavian dialects. Instead, the opposite was done, with some modern-day linguists calling the process of 19th-century standardization an event of neo-Shtokavian purism and a purge of non-Shtokavian elements. Early 20th century witnessed a drastic increase in released Kajkavian literature, although by then it had become part of what was considered Croatian dialectal poetry with no pretense of serving as a standard written form. The most notable writers of this period were, among others, Anton Gustav Matos, Miroslav Kraleza, Ivan Goran Kovačić, Dragutin Domjanic and Nikola Pavić. Kajkavian lexical treasure is being published by the Croatian Academy of Sciences and Arts in Ječnik Hrvatskoga Kajkavskoga Književnoga jezika, Dictionary of the Croatian Kajkavian Literary Language, 8 volumes. Later, Dario Vidbalic, actor, linguist and writer, translated the New Testament in Kajkavian. Below are examples of the Lord's Prayer in the Croatian variant of Shtokavian, literary Kajkavian, and a Međimurje variant of the Kajkavian dialect. Vocabulary comparison. What follows is a comparison of some words in Kajkavian, Shtokavian and Slovene along with their English translations. The Kajkavian words are given in the most common orthographic form. Shtokavian words are given in the standard Croatian form. In cases where the place of accent or stress differs, the syllable with the stress or accent is indicated in bold. Words that are the same in all three are not listed. Loanwords are also not listed. Kajkavian media. During Yugoslavia in the 20th century, Kajkavian was mostly restricted to private communication, poetry and folklore. With the recent regional democratizing and cultural revival beginning in the 1990s, Kajkavian partly regained its former half-public position chiefly in Zagorje and Varaždin counties and local towns, where there is now some public media, e.g. a quarterly periodical, Kai, with 35 annual volumes in nearly 100 fascicles published since 1967 by the Kajkavian Association in Zagreb, an autumnal week of Kajkavian culture in Krapina since 1997, with professional symposia on Kajkavian resulting in 5 published proceedings, an annual periodical, Hrvatski Sjever, with a dozen volumes partly in Kajkavian published by Matica Hrvatska in Kakovic. A new internet portal, Kajkavian Zoho Wiki, a minor wiki lexicon on the Kajkavian culture and dialect in northwestern Croatia starting in autumn 2009. A permanent radio program in Kajkavian, Kajkavian Radio in Krapina. Other minor half-Kajkavian media with temporary Kajkavian contents include local television in Varaždin, the local radio programs Lami in Zagreb, and some local newspapers in northwestern Croatia in Varaždin, Kakovic, Samoba, etc. Examples: Kajbam. In Kajkavian, what should I do? Takja, navig below, kakbu, abu vre nekak kakbu, nigda ni tak below dani nekak below, pak ni vezduni bu danam nekak nibu. Miroslav Kraleza, Kai Busti, Bamaya, Ni Buislo, Bumovidli, Dejmuci, or Mucidaj. Buspukel, bum. Numerous supplementary examples see also by a Negro Agramersky Stykalesi. Another major example, traditional kaɪʻkɑːviən paternoster, Japanese Kateri cf nebisi nexes vete imetvoj nek prihaja sezashtovo tvoj nek buvolu tvoj akaktin onebitak panazemla, kruhek nas sakdajni nam daj deans der od paskaj nam dugines kaktimi od paskamo dosnikom nasinte naj nas palativus kusnya, nek nas zbavi od seki huduba, fse veki vekov amen. Bibliography. Thelita D. Lidag G. Istria.It Croatia. Muhamedi Morha, 37 Street. Kajkavian 1997. Furza, Jembri Kajkavski Upovijes nomai sad anjum obzorju, Harvatska, Zdruga Muzi Zagorskog SRC 587 Street. Zabik 2006. JAZU, HAZU, Jeknik Harvatskoga Kajkavskog Nizovnog Jezika IX, Zavodza Harvatski Jezik I Jezik Koslovlu 2500 Street, Zagreb 1984–2005. Liplan, T 2002, Jeknik Varatstinskoga Kajkavskog Gavora, Gorestan, Virajdan, 1284 Street. Lunkarik, M. 1996, Kajkavsko Najekia, Skolska Njiga, Zagreb, 198 Street. Magna, F. 1971, Kajkavian Kone, Symboli in Onrem Georgi Y. Shevelov, Munchen, Mugus, M. A History of the Croatian Language, NZ Globus, Zagreb, 1995. Sojet, A. 1969–1971, Kratki Navuk Jezisnis Horvatsky. Kai 1969–3–4, 5, 7–8, 10, 12, Kai 1970–2, 3–4, 10, Kai 1971–10, 11. Kajkavsko Spravis, Zagreb, Okuka, M. 2008, SRPSKI Dialect. Skd Provjeta, Zagreb, 7. Street. Levinson, David, O'Leary, Timothy, Encyclopedia of World Cultures, A. K. Hall, p. 239, ISBN 0816118086.